Right now,
Today
53
we'll tackle tough times in California.
economic troubles facing San Diego will be the focus of Mayor Jerry Sanders' annual State of the City
reports a 60% hike in rapes where either one or both people.
UCLA researchers tracked the progress of 50 sarcoma patients using
From the KPBS studios, this is San Diego Week.
Hello, I'm Joanne Ferry, and thanks for joining us. Tonight on San Diego Week, Sheriff Bill Gore will be in studio to talk about how the prison release ruling will affect San Diego County jails, and a special report on San Diego researchers finding new ways to scientifically measure the mental trauma of war. And should teachers forego a pay raise in San Diego to try and save jobs? At least one school board trustee thinks so. He'll tell us why. And Dwayne Brown sits down with retiring SDSU President Steven Weber and asks him about his legacy. That's coming up on San Diego Week, but first, the headlines. KPBS reporter Peggy Pico joins us from the News Center with the week's headlines. Peggy?
Joanne, another San Diego police officer is under investigation for possible criminal activity. Chula Vista police officers say an off-duty San Diego officer was suspected of driving under the influence based on a citizen's report. The officer, whose name is being withheld, has not been arrested. Police will only say they are still investigating. 10 other San Diego police officers have been accused of various crimes, ranging from DUI to sexual assault, over the past few months. Of those, 6 officers have been arrested. Stephen Martinez was denied medical parole this week. Martinez is serving a 157 years to life sentence for repeatedly raping and beating a woman in San Diego. The convicted rapist was left a quadriplegic by a prison stabbing. It cost more than $600,000 a year for his round-the-clock care and his guards. His attorney says Martinez is not a threat and could be safely housed outside of prison for a lot less money. But a victims advocate group defends the parole board's decision. The U.S. Supreme Court recently ordered California to release tens of thousands of prisoners over the next 2 years to relieve overcrowding. And San Diego is bound to uphold state environmental laws when issuing permits for fireworks shows. That's the latest ruling from a Superior Court judge. The decision stems from a lawsuit filed by environmental lawyer Marco Gonzalez. He claims the annual 4th of July fireworks show at La Jolla Cove pollutes the water and endangers marine life. He insists an environmental impact report be made or the show can't go on. The city is expected to appeal the decision or seek an exemption in time for July 4th. Memorial Day is a barometer of sorts for summer travel. San Diego suffered a decline in visitors and revenues over the past 2 summers, but the County Hotel Motel Association anticipates a better turnout this year. They say many local hotels have already sold out earlier this week. Traditionally, Memorial Day tourists drive from nearby areas like Phoenix and Las Vegas. About 800,000 people are expected to visit San Diego beaches over this 3-day weekend. To see all of this week's top news stories, go to kpbs.org.
On Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a ruling which orders California to reduce its prison population by more than 30,000 inmates. The court ruled there are too many inmates in California's 33 prisons. Prisons built for 100,000, which now hold more than 140,000 inmates. This is Donovan State Prison in East County. And this crowded space is supposed to be a gymnasium, but now houses stacks of bunk beds. This is the scene at many prisons throughout the state. And because of this overcrowding, a federal panel ruled nearly 10 years ago inmates do not have adequate access to health care and mental health services, and that violates their constitutional rights. The High Court upheld that ruling, and now something has to be done. The question now is, where will all those inmates go? Joining me to talk about whether San Diego County jails will see an influx is County Sheriff Bill Gore. Sheriff, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So how has the state responded in terms of dealing with this problem?
Well, this is not a new problem. This problem has been going on for quite some time. You can go back 25 years in the state of California when I think a lot of well-intentioned legislators wanted to get tough on crime. And they passed very strict sentencing rules, mandatory minimum sentences, 3 strikes, and as a result of that, our prison population grew dramatically. Those are probably good laws. Resulting in those laws, look at crime now in San Diego County is at a 30-year low. So I think that's one of the contributing factors to our low crime rate. But what they didn't do, at the same time they were increasing the number of people in our state prisons, they did not increase the capacity. So you have severe overcrowding, which the federal government's been trying to address now for the last 20 years. And we have to pay the piper. The Supreme Court has ruled.
And the state's passed a law that's going to affect you.
Right, and it's interesting, coincidentally, we also have a $26 billion budget shortfall in this state. So as part of Governor Brown's problem to save money was what he called realignment, AB 109, which takes non-serious, non-violent, non-sex offenders out of that would have been sentenced to state prison and sentences them to our county jails. The number of estimated prisoners in this category is roughly 35,000 inmates. So coincidentally, falls into this number that the Supreme Court has ordered them to lower their population by. I don't think this is an accident. I think the state knew they were going to lose this case in the Supreme Court, and this is also a way of saving the state money and addressing the previous lawsuit that they'd lost a year and a half ago.
So let's clarify something here. Really what this order is, reduce your prison population, not let out prisoners. And what AB 109 says is going forth, these other convicted criminals go to county, they don't go to state. So we're not going to see this mass release.
Exactly. And what happened when the first court ruling came down, which the state appealed to the Supreme Court, when it first came down, there was a plan to take non-serious, non-violent, non-sex offenders and start releasing them to meet this new court order. But that was kind of a backup plan in case we lost in the Supreme Court. Well, at the same time, now we have this budget crisis, and we're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. They're going to lower the prison population, plus save the state money by putting these inmates into county jails. The big question is, if this is going to work, is how much money is the state going to give the counties to handle those new inmates? I'm not saying it can't work. I think it will probably do a better job of dealing with inmates in our county jails than they have in state prisons, where they've basically been warehoused. And we can see, as a result of that, we have the highest recidivism rate of any state in the United States. So I think we'll do better integrating these people that are in our jails back into the community, but that's going to take money.
Money. So let's talk about money. Are you in negotiations with the state currently to talk about, okay, we're going to take these inmates, but we need money from you?
Absolutely. The state says that they spend about $50,000 a year per inmate in the state prison system. We can do it cheaper than that, but we can't do it for nothing. That's what we're talking about now, is how much money will be made available to the county probation, to the county sheriff's department to run the jails, to make the system work.
I want to tell you about some of the concerns we've heard from the public all week long as we've been broadcasting about this issue, writing about this issue. The question has come up, if we have now a whole set of new inmates in our county jails, are our county jails sort of built to address this? In terms of security, do we have to tighten our security at our county jail to accommodate this new population?
Sure. I think there's a misconception that anybody, I don't care how violent the crime, murderers, mass murderers, they do their time in county jails while they're awaiting trial before they're sent off, and or if they are convicted, sent off to state prison. So we deal with very violent offenders all the time in our county jails. This plan calls for non-serious, non-violent, non-sex offenders to be sentenced to county jails. We expect the average sentence of those type of inmates to probably be around 3 to 4 to 5 years, in that range. So it's not a matter of can we handle them. We can handle them. The issue is how much money are we going to do it, and how fast are our jails going to fill up? Because we're pretty close to capacity now, so we'll have to expand our jail population, our number of beds we have available to us also, and that will take money.
I want to follow up on that. So how much room do you have now? How much room do you foresee having in the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, the numbers they talk about at the state, how many we can expect to come into the county jails, is 2,000, 2,500 new inmates. I have room right now for, 600, 800, 900, it depends. We have a fluctuating prison population. We have plans down the road to take back 1,000 beds from a private prison down in Otay Mesa that will come back to the county in 2015. We're going to build additional capacity into our new women's facility at Las Colinas. That'll add another 400 beds. So we have the ability over the next 4 years to get to that probably $2,500 bed count, but it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some more money.
Thank you, Sheriff Gore, for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
The state has put some measures in place last year to begin reducing the prison population, including allowing more inmates to be released on parole without supervision. Last year, between January and June, 10,000 inmates were released on non-revocable parole. That means they weren't supervised and were not sent back to prison if they violated the terms of their parole. An Inspector General's report released this week found that 1,500 of those parolees were mistakenly released under these conditions, and 450 of them carried a high risk for violence. Republican State Senator Joel Anderson, who represents East County and Riverside, is calling on the Department of Corrections to release the names of those inmates and the location in which they were released. Well, the invisible wounds sustained in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan can be more difficult to deal with than the visible injuries. KPBS reporter Allison St. John tells us about new research at UC San Diego and the VA Medical Center. It's finding ways to measure the physical evidence of a signature injury of the war, traumatic brain injury.
Here you go. Ready?
Colonel G.I. Wilson and his daughter Kendra love to play with their dogs in the backyard. Wilson, who is 64 and has now retired from the Marine Corps, deployed numerous times. But after his last deployment to Iraq in 2005, Kendra noticed he was changed.
His last tour over there, when he came back, that was the first time that I ever actually noticed a significant difference in his personality, the way he was acting, just even driving down the freeway. I was like, okay. Plus, there was the medical aspect of that was the first time I had ever been told that he had actually been hit by an IED and there was significant damage.
I thought everybody was reacting differently. You know, the dog reacted differently, and my daughter reacted differently, and my wife reacted differently, and I thought it was them, and of course it was me, not them.
We would have a discussion, and 10 minutes later he would ask me a question about what we had just discussed. I'm like, Dad, we just talked about that.
Wilson found he was having trouble processing information, remembering things and finding words. His normally outgoing personality changed. He was withdrawn and depressed. When his dog died in 2009, that's 3 years after he came back from Iraq, it triggered a major breakdown.
I knew from his, from his rank and his past experience that he'd done very high-level work. He'd written long treatises or papers, and he was telling me he was having difficulty doing that kind of work, exactly the same kind of work after the blast injury.
Most people diagnosed with mild traumatic brain injury, or TBI, recover in a matter of months. Baker says there were no tests or brain scans to provide objective evidence of more lasting damage to the brain.
So you were just left a little in the dark, as was the patient. So I needed some help to find some kind of, have an objective measure of whether this had whether they had TBI.
And let me open up the door.
Enter Dr. Mingjong Huang. Using a magnetoencephalographic, or MEG, brain scanner, one of only 20 in the country, Dr. Huang zeroes in on slow waves emitted by cells in the brain.
Keep your eyes closed for 5 minutes and open up for another 5 minutes. It's frustrating, and when the conventional neuroimaging do not provide the location of injury and the network associated with the injury. So that actually motivates us, me in particular, develop new technology based on MEG slow wave measurements to make the invisible injury visible.
Normal MRI brain scans only pick up the symptoms of mild traumatic brain injury about 10% of the time, whereas this scanner, which is a MEG brain scanner, picks up those symptoms in the brain more like 90% of the time.
And so something over here
For the first time, Wilson had physical evidence that what he was experiencing had a physiological cause. Dr. Baker says the MEG brain scans may eventually be able to help her diagnose whether patients are suffering from symptoms of PTSD or TBI, which respond to different kinds of treatment.
One thing, it can track people who are getting different kinds of treatments and look at the resolution through objective scan evidence. So you can begin to more carefully compare the outcomes of treatments that might be brought in that are new treatments to help with mild TBI.
And for Wilson and his family, it was a huge relief to get a confirmation of his physical injury.
Even though we knew it in our minds and our hearts, it was kind of like the concrete that it's not us. Like, he's not reacting like this because he's mad at us or his feelings have changed in any way, shape, or form. Like, there's an actual physical cause that's making this happen. And that makes it a little easier to deal with.
I'm very, very fortunate because I can see it. They're able to demonstrate what happened to me, even though it basically is an invisible injury. You know, what about all those people out there today that, you know, the soldiers, sailors, Marine, and airmen who have this injury, don't know it, no one's seen it. The research at the university is done with the VA is very, very important in getting to that problem. The invisible injury is not so invisible.
For Colonel Wilson, the MEG brain scans have made all the difference to his ability to recover and slowly learn how to get back to the life he wants to lead.
Allison St. John reporting. A San Diego school board member is asking teachers to forego raises for the next few years because of cuts in education funding. Over the next 3 school years, San Diego Unified had agreed to pay $88 million in salary increases, but now school trustee Scott Barnett would like those teachers to forego those raises, and he joins me now to talk more about this. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
How much of a raise are we talking about?
Sure. The past school board, and I just joined the school board this year, agreed to $88 million in raises over the next 3 years. This year, we actually already have paid $17 million in raises.
So that's about 3% per year for teachers?
And it's all employees across the board.
All employees, okay, so 3% next year and the year after. I thought there was good budget news lately, so why now? Why are you asking them to forego this news now when it looks like we're getting more money?
Well, first of all, the entire board unanimously agreed a couple of months ago to ask all our bargaining unions to open negotiations on salary and benefits in order to save jobs. So it was the entire board. I specifically made this proposal. And every bargaining unit has refused to say they even want to talk to us. They won't even discuss it. The news from the state, let's say, put it this way, it's less horrible. It's not really good news. And basically, the $3 billion that they're looking at for having this next year is money that they're going to distribute to school districts to basically say the money that we said we were going to defer and pay you in later years will actually pay you sooner, so we won't have to borrow as much money this coming year to make payroll. We borrow about $230 million every July just to make payroll. So this helps us in cash flow. It actually doesn't give us any more actual dollars just when we get some money.
So what did the union say to you?
They're not saying anything. Every single union refused. They said, we don't want to discuss it, we don't want to open the contract, or in the case of the Teachers Association, they just didn't even respond.
I want to let our audience know that we did invite a member of the teachers union to be on the show tonight. However, they declined, but I want to read a statement from Bill Freeman. He's head of that union, and he did release a statement yesterday. He says Trustee Barnett is distorting the truth about the district's budget in order to create a sense of panic that will further his own political career, an act of cynicism that has no place near our classrooms. Trustee Barnett, how do you respond to that statement?
Well, first of all, I believe all our employees deserve raises. All of our employees work really hard, teachers, bus drivers, nurses, counselors. The bottom line is we can't afford it. These numbers are not my numbers. These are numbers from the governor, gone to our superintendent, Bill Koba, most honorable person around, and these are their numbers. I've not created them. I'm just stating what the facts are. Unfortunately, the teachers union is not responsible for the financial security of this district. They're responsible for the members, and I understand that.
So if the unions were to agree and say, okay, we won't accept these raises, could you rescind some of the layoff notices?
Absolutely.
How many?
Well, it depends. I mean, next year, Just based on next year, the raise is going to be about $12.5 million, and that's in the form of what's called step and column increases. Probably on teachers, about 150 teaching positions, roughly.
Out of 750, I think, that you sent out? Okay.
Yes. Now, the average teacher salary and benefits is $87,500, but since mostly...
Including benefits.
Including benefits, yeah. And the same benefits that all board members receive, in fact. Great benefits, of which none of us pay a penny out of our pocket for every year. So
we'll have to leave it there. Okay. Trustee Barnett, thanks so much for being here. Well, California State University leaders say severe cutbacks will be necessary if state lawmakers adopt an all-cuts budget next month. Student tuition at schools like San Diego State University would go up an additional 30% without extra state funding. The news comes as SDSU's president is getting ready to step down in July. KPBS reporter Dwayne Brown spent time talking with Stephen Weber about the state of higher education.
Well, Dr. Weber, you turned 69 years old this year.
True.
And why did you decide now would be a good time to retire?
Well, the short answer is I'm old. But the truth is, the job is a demanding job. It requires a lot of stamina. You have less of that as you get to my age. But I also think it's a good time for San Diego State. I've been here 15 years. New leadership is good for the organization. A new president with new challenges will be very helpful to our university as we go forward.
When you came to San Diego State 15 years ago, tuition was about $1,900 a year. Today, Dr. Weber, it has more than tripled or nearly tripled to about $5,400 a year. Yes. How do you see the rising cost of tuition impacting the promise of affordable public university education in California?
Well, first of all, remember our tuition is about half of the national average. So one of the problems we have is we don't have enough resources to admit all the students that want to come to San Diego State. We could admit more students if we had higher tuition, strangely enough. When we were confronted by cuts in state funding a couple of years ago, we had to reduce our enrollment by 4,662 students. So what was at one time a way to provide access by having low tuition back in the 60s, at that time the state was able to support higher education. Now they're not supporting it, and so absent tuition, we don't have the ability to hire the people we need to hire if we're going to teach and support our students.
So at this point, the state doesn't get the bigger picture.
I think that's true.
Dr. Weber, what are you most proud of after spending time at the helm here at SDSU?
Well, there's a lot to be proud of, but I don't want to sound as if I accomplished it myself. A lot of people worked very hard. The thing that I'm most pleased about is the increase in our graduation rates. The Chronicle of Higher Education did a story about 4 months ago, and it showed that San Diego State leads the country in the increase in graduation rates. In 6 years, we were up by 17 percentage points, and the number 2 and 3 universities in the country were up by 12 percentage points. So we just blew away the field. But that only tells part of the story. Over 10 years, our graduation rates are up 28 percentage points, and that still tells only part of the story because our students of color, their graduation rate is up 31 percentage points.
Leading the nation among universities.
Almost doubling the best institutions in the country.
And I know you're passionate about the issue of the achievement gap among black and brown students.
One of the serious problems our society has is a lot of our talent is being left behind, and that's reflected in an achievement gap both through K through 12 and then in higher education. And tragically, the achievement gap, that is the gap between the majority population and the emerging minority populations, across the country, that's increasing. While at San Diego State it's decreasing, and the achievement gap is now down to only 2%, which is wonderful.
Phenomenal. Where would you like to see San Diego State focus its attention in the next 5 years?
Not my call. I mean, a good question, but I really have a lot of respect for Elliot Hirschman and for this campus, and one of the nice things, as I said earlier, about new leadership is Elliot's going to come in and he's going to just inhale this place, and he's going to listen to the story, and then he's going to start asking questions. Well, why do we do it this way? And I'm so comfortable now that I'm not asking the right questions anymore. So it's time for a new person to come in and figure out where we go from here.
That was KPBS's Dwayne Brown. And of course, Elliot is Elliot Hirschman, President Weber's replacement. And he will take over as president of San Diego State University on July 5th. He comes to SDSU from the University of Maryland, where he served as provost and senior vice president. And now here's Peggy Pico with a look ahead to next week.
Joanne, all city, county, and state government offices will be closed Monday to observe Memorial Day. Closures include all courts, libraries, and recreation centers. There will be no mail delivery, trash, or recycling collection. Trash service will resume Tuesday on a one-day delay pickup schedule. However, some things will be open, including pools. Torrey Pines, Balboa Park, and Mission Bay golf courses will remain open, as well as Balboa Park and all county parks.
Thanks, Peggy. All of the stories you saw tonight can be viewed on our website at kpbs.org/SDWeek. And now here's a look at your long weekend weather forecast. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Good night.